Welcome back, Careblazer. In today's video, I want to talk about a very important distinction to be made when it comes to how you're responding to a difficult dementia behavior. And this distinction can make the difference between your loved one engaging in that difficult behavior even more or reducing that difficult behavior. I was reading a book recently. It is an excellent book when it comes to how to handle difficult, challenging dementia behaviors. And I've read this book before, but I was doing a refresher and it just popped out to me and I thought, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I have not talked about this before on this channel. So I'm going to share it with you here, and I'm going to be sure that I link this book in the description below if you want to check it out yourself. I'm going to be talking about the very important difference between ignoring a behavior, which can tend to make that behavior happen more often, and acknowledging a behavior, which can start the path to reducing the behavior from happening. So I'm going to share the difference between the very important difference between ignoring a behavior and acknowledging a behavior. And then I'm going to give you the 3-step process you can take, 3 simple steps you can start using now to apply to your situation if you're trying to get a behavior to go away or to reduce and how often it's happening. So you don't want to miss that. I share that towards the end of this video. First, let's talk about ignoring a behavior. Sometimes when your loved one is doing something that you find annoying, frustrating, aggravating, you might get to the point where you're just going to ignore it altogether because you think it's going to go away and you don't want to reinforce the behavior. The thing is, a lot of times when we totally ignore something, it can make that behavior worse. Let's say your loved one asks the same question 50 times a day, and you're fed up and you don't want to answer this question anymore. So you've decided, I'm just going to ignore this question and not answer it. So your loved one asks you the question, asks you the question, asks you the question 50 times, right? And each time they're asking, they might even be getting more and more upset because you are now ignoring this question. Well, by the 50th time, the 60th time, the 70th time, the 100th time, whatever it is, at some point, chances are high you're going to break down and get so frustrated and just answer the question, right? In doing that, you have just reinforced the behavior. Because now the person with dementia, it realizes at some point they get their question answered, right? It might not be the first 50 times, it may not be 70 times, it might be 100 times. So by ignoring it to the point where the frustration builds up, to the point where you can't take it anymore and you just break down and answer it, you've just reinforced the behavior, the very thing you don't want to happen. We can also apply this to the situation of somebody who might be living in a memory care facility and they're like pressing the call button on their bed. They're pressing it, pressing it, pressing it. Every time the staff comes to check on them, everything's fine. The person doesn't really seem to need anything. So then maybe the staff stops responding to the bell. And then the person keeps pressing it and pressing it and pressing it and pressing it. And finally, somebody's going to come along and check on that bell. That person just got reinforced for pressing that button as many times as they need to. They're just not going to stop pressing it because at some point they know they get what they want. The person comes. So ignoring the behavior is clearly not the solution. What are you going to do? Here are the 3 steps that Dr. Camp of this book, Hiding the Stranger in the Mirror, shares, and I'm going to share with you. Step 1, do not reinforce the behavior. So for example, let's say that your loved one keeps asking you over and over again when it's time to eat. You can respond to them and say, what time do you think we're going to eat? And then when they respond to something generally in the ballpark, you can say, that's right. Now I'm going to get back to doing what I was doing, and you can walk away. Now, Careblazer, you can adjust the words you use to whatever feels best for you. But the point is you're starting to ask them so that to see if they might just be able to know. And then you're able to just say, yep, that's right. And then you get back to what you're doing and you walk away. You make the adjustments needed to these sentences in a way that best fits your situation. Now, let's say you asked your loved one, what time do you think? And they're like, I have no idea. That's why I'm asking you. Or they give you a time that's totally way off base, right? That's when you can say, actually, we're going to eat at 5 o'clock. Now I'm going to get back to folding the laundry and walk away. right? So you're asking the question because, like I've mentioned in a past video, they can start to associate things. They can start to learn new things over time. And you're giving them that opportunity, a little opportunity for learning. You're either saying, yep, that's right, and then going back to letting them know you need to get back to your activity, or you're going to say, actually, it's this, and then you're going to let them know you need to get back to your activity. This is not ignoring a behavior. It's acknowledging their question, but not reinforcing it by continuing to engage in a conversation that you don't want to reinforce. You don't want it to keep happening. So you acknowledge it, and then you go about doing whatever it is that you were going to do. Okay, so step 1 was do not reinforce the behavior. Step 2 is provide reinforcement when the behavior is not taking place. All too often, people with dementia are getting reinforced for the very behaviors you don't want to happen anymore, just like I explained earlier in this video. So in step 2, you want to find times that they're not engaging in that behavior and give them some attention, some support, perhaps even give them information about what they're usually asking about when they're not asking about it. This allows the person with dementia to learn that they can get attention, validation, support when they aren't actively seeking this information. For example, sticking with the example about your loved one constantly asking what time it is to eat, what you could do to illustrate step 2 would be when they're not asking about it, let's say you walk past them and you can say, hey, we're having chicken tonight for dinner. It's going to be at 5 o'clock. I'll make sure to come get you at that time, right? So you're already starting to prevent them from asking this question by answering it before they even ask, because you know it's a repetitive behavior and question they have. So that was step 2, providing that reinforcement and recognition, attention when they're not engaged in the behavior. Moving on to step 3. Step 3 is providing them with a meaningful activity. This is a good step to use for so many reasons. But like I mentioned before in an Instagram post that I did earlier, when your loved one with dementia is engaged in a pleasant event, in some sort of meaningful activity, meaning they have some interest in it, it's impossible for them to also be engaged in one of the challenging behaviors that you're trying to get rid of. And if you want a refresher on all the different types of pleasant or meaningful activities that you can do, you want to check out this video that I did earlier. When someone with dementia is engaged in doing an activity they really enjoy doing, they aren't also thinking about or doing the challenging behavior. So this is definitely a step that's worth your time in thinking about. Careblazer, that's the 3 steps. 1, don't reinforce the behavior. 2, provide reinforcement and acknowledgement when they're not in the behavior. And 3, engage them in some sort of meaningful activity during the day. I hope this helps you if you find that your loved one is engaging in the same type of challenging behavior over and over again, like asking the same question a million times. I'll be back next week with another video. In the meantime, Careblazer, the specific book is linked below. Keep up the great work. Bye.